Studying the Word of God can be difficult. One of the easiest ways to study the Bible is one verse at a time, but at times it can seem overwhelming. Our goal in this podcast is to wrestle with the text and dive in deeper. We pray that this edifies you and empowers you to fall deeper in love with the Bible and Jesus. Welcome to Everyday Theology.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Everyday Theology Podcast. We are here gathered together to talk about some fun stuff out of the Gospel of John. Good stuff, right?
Woohoo.
Yes.
There you go. I'm not sure that sounded very authentic, but that's okay. So we find ourselves in John chapter 6. Jesus has just done this great thing by feeding the multitudes on the mountain with, this little...
Deny. Oh, press the wrong button.
So that
doesn't go with that at
I
all.
don't think that's
No, I was trying to do this one.
Wow.
Sorry. Well,
The Seinfeld no soup for you would have been a good one.
Oh, that is a good. I gotta add that.
yeah, that's just what we need. More sound bites for John.
Sorry. Continue.
Yeah, it's
confused.
I know you were being sarcastic, but I'm gonna act like you weren't. That's just what we need.
Yeah.
More sound bites for John.
Yeah, exactly. I meant that literally.
Merry Christmas.
We're going to need a new button pusher.
We are. None of us know how to work any of it, so we can't. That's called job security.
John's mercy.
Don't teach anybody else what I do.
That's right. Yep. It's only him. So anyway, Jesus is doing some miracles and feeding. Let's call it 20,000. That's what scholars conservatively estimate on the side of that mountain with a Lunchable, as we've called it, a little sack lunch from this boy. Some small dinner loaves. Loave's not the right word. Dinner roll.
A breadcrumb. A breadcrumb and some fish.
Yeah.
You remember those shirts?
Yep. Little basket of bread at a restaurant and a can of sardines, and that's about it. And this incredible display of God's creative power as the creator is there on the mountain doing all of this creative work.
So was it out of nothing?
Out of nothing, right, Sean? Yeah.
Yep.
See last episode.
There you go. Yeah.
Good times.
And then there's this really interesting reaction from the crowd. First of all, they declare he's the prophet to come, which is a fulfillment of Deuteronomy 18. He's the greater Moses. And then they say, let's make him king.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that and their desires there. Why do they want to make him king?
I don't know, but I would have liked to have seen how that played out. This says they were going to take him by force to make him king. I mean, were they going to march him up to the temple and start slaughtering the Pharisees?
They'd carry him like he's at a rock concert.
Yeah, crowd surfing.
Crowd surf him all the way up.
Yeah.
I mean, these are common people,
right?
And they hold the Pharisees, the religious leaders, in high regard. Like, how was that going to work?
So the scholars do touch on that. So it's a great question. It's the time of the Passover.
Okay.
In Jerusalem. So they would have marched to Jerusalem and declared him king publicly with all of the pomp of what's happening with the Passover.
Much like what happens at the triumphal entry?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would have been a similar scene, but there would have been violent force behind it instead of this, lay down palm branches. They're ready to fight because he's their guy. And we're going to take over. He's the new Moses. He's going to lead us out of
Jesus, we have one sword. Can you make 20,000 of these?
Obviously, he can. I mean, if he can do it with bread and fish, he can do it with swords. Does his power, is it limited by, is it like Superman that there are some things he can't do? I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. No.
So they there you go. So there would have been a public opportunity at the time to get a crowd, because the crowd was already gathered in Jerusalem. But the last time that Jesus was offered kingship, he rightly recognized it as satanic, because Satan is the one who tempted him with being king over the world, over the kingdoms of the world. He's already king. He doesn't need anybody else to set him in that position. He doesn't need Satan to do that. He doesn't need the crowds to do that. And he simply dismisses this, just like he did with Satan, and heads up back the mountain to pray.
Isn't it interesting, though, how much easier that would have made his ministry? I mean, if he gets put in place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know?
He wouldn't have had to die, man.
Yeah.
He could just
I
go to
know.
the.
I just had a random thought about that though. Like, hey, I'll make you. All this can be yours. Well, it's already his. Well,
Yeah,
just like
mine- yeah.
just like the Garden of Eden. Like when you telling Eve, like you can be like God. Well, she was already made in the image of God.
Yep, exactly. Satan's a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
That's all he's got is I'll give you what you already have.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why is that a good
Gee,
offer?
thanks.
But we fall for it a lot.
We do.
Every stinking day.
For a few millennia now.
Shiny.
Yeah. Ooh, look at that. That looks fun.
Well, he repackages it.
Yeah.
That's what he does.
Yeah, which is why when James talks about we're dragged away by our own evil desires, the two words that he uses there are fishing terms, dragged away and enticed. So it is literally the image of a fishing lure dangling in the
Really?
water to
I'm so
lure.
pretty.
Yeah, look, this is shiny. Don't you want to bite
shiny.
this? This looks good. And we're the big dummies that just away
Why,
we go.
yes, I do.
Yeah, that looks great. I think I'll do that.
That will forever be burned in my head now when I'm fishing. I'm going to think of the
You're sinning.
similarity. Yeah, the similarity.
You're
Yeah.
now Satan to the fish.
I always knew you had a satanic vibe to you.
Yeah. That's what everybody says.
So they attempt to
Don't believe it.
to make him king. He withdraws. He wants none of that. Meanwhile, apparently he's given the disciples the instructions, and they go down to the valley, way down into the valley, 680 feet below sea level from the upper highlands, and they begin to cross over to Capernaum, and Jesus just walks on the water, which is super cool. That, I don't want to walk all the way around, because what we'll discover in the texts to come is that's what the crowd does. They just walk around the water and they meet him on the other side. Jesus just
Goes across.
shortcut.
You said something in your sermon that I'd never heard of before, that there's a skeptical point of view where they think that they were rowing at an angle and Jesus was just coming up.
Yeah.
Do they get that because of where it says that then immediately they were on the other side? Like they were essentially ready to run into the shore and Jesus was kind of walking out on the shore.
Yep.
And okay.
Yeah, and again, it's dark, it's misty.
Yep.
They don't know what they're seeing. Maybe it's
They
foggy,
think they're in the middle of the sea.
but they're not.
They'd have to be really close to the shore
Yes.
to make out like who a person is
Yes.
and have a conversation.
Yeah, it'd have to be really dark
Yeah.
with no reflection on the water.
Well, I think that's just part of this whole, hermeneutic that's out there of, this doesn't make sense to my mind, so I can't interpret it the way it literally says. So how can this mean something else?
Yep. What's the same way with the feeding of the 5,000? Well, that obviously can't be what happened. So the crowd was inspired by the little boy's sacrifice, where everybody got out their own lunch. Like, well, that's not what the text tells us. So you're right. It is this hermeneutic that says the Bible can't mean what it says. So that can't happen. Therefore, we have to find another explanation. Same thing here. But I think this one's even more dumb because this
We
is
have Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, this is a boat filled with experienced fishermen, professional fishermen. And, oh no, they were mistaken. They didn't know where they were. They've been doing this their whole lives.
On that very body of water.
Yes, that's their lake. Like, this is their thing. This was their career before they left that career to go and follow Jesus. This is not the first time they've rowed across this lake, for crying out loud. These are the most experienced people in the region to do this. They weren't accidentally along the coast. And, I mean, how close do you have to be to the coast in the middle of the night, 3 a.m.-ish, to look over and see somebody walking and know it's a person walking? You got to be really close.
Depends on the phase of the moon.
Well, you just solved it. So it wasn't a miracle. It was a full moon. It was lit up. That's how it goes. So again, it's just this goofy.
It was storming.
But when you're
Couldn't even see
3.5,
the moon.
4 miles from shore,
This is goofy.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's just not a thing. So he walks up to them, and that explains they were immediately there. Not only was there not one miracle, they say there wasn't two miracles. They were just really close, and Jesus just met them there. So he got into the boat, and he was like, "Oh, we're already at the dock. Here we go." What a goofy way to read the Bible. in an unfortunate way, to miss out on the richness, the depth, the reality of who Jesus is and what he can do.
I think it reflects your view of God. You're trying to bring him down to your level, to your
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah.
You like you said, Scott. I can't understand this, so let me make it to where I can.
Yeah. Again, you have two instances in a row on the mountain and down in the valley where God the Creator is simply showing his sovereignty over his creation.
Yeah.
He can multiply the food. He can walk on the water. If you believe that Jesus really is who he said he was, then this is not hard to grasp. This is not hard to understand. So this shows, I think, people's bias against the identity of Jesus. They're biased against the truthfulness and trustworthiness of the Bible. But if we just let it say what it says, it's plain as day of what's actually happening here. Not just the one miracle, but the two. And then Jesus has this great statement. It is I, which is a terrible English translation, but we understand why they did it. To make sense in English, literally translates I am. The divine name out of Exodus 3.
That's cool.
When Yahweh, that literally translates I am, it's a form of the Hebrew verb to be. Jesus adopts that and says, that's me. I am Yahweh in the flesh right here. Again, one of numerous times that he does it through the Gospel of John, but this is quite explicit. No wonder they want him to be on the boat with him. So let's talk for a bit pastorally. So the sermon was certainly higher on the pastoral side this week. He's the God of the mountain. He's the God of the valley. He's the God who can multiply the miracle up on the side of the mountain, and he's the God who can walk on the water in the valley. And we drew the parallel with the battle from the Old Testament. He is the God of the valley, just like he's the God of the mountain. He's God everywhere. So we all have this experience in life. Everybody that we know, everybody in our family, ourselves, has this up and down thing with life. There are mountaintop experiences, and there are the valleys. We like the mountaintops; those are fun. Those are really exciting. The valleys, not so much. But I think what we have to acknowledge equally on both, he's the God of both. Mm-hmm. And I think there's this temptation, and let's maybe speak to this first. When you are on the mountain and things are going well, that you kind of can dismiss God, take him for granted. Things are going well. Look at all that I've done, that kind of a thing. And we don't necessarily have this response to the greatness of our life if God is actively pouring out all this blessing right now. He's the one responsible for it. We kind of take some credit. What do I need him for? Things are going well. But we really need him when we're in the valley because we've realized our own powerlessness. But nothing's really changed. We were powerless on the mountain too. So let's just talk about that. And he's the God of both, and we need him in both. And what do we do? Well,
I think it's very natural for us to just keep seeking after those mountaintop experiences, and that's much more easily learned than God being the God of the valleys. Mm-hmm. That's a journey that God takes us through. But I mean, I've seen that in my own life, where there's seasons. Well, a season of my faith where I was just kind of seeking mountaintop to mountaintop in these experiences with God, and then when things aren't going well, or you don't have the same feeling, it's very emotional based. Mm-hmm. It could feel like something's wrong, and
I feel distant from him.
Yeah,
those kinds of things.
I don't feel his presence.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of worship services that are geared towards this is to try and stimulate your emotions so that you feel like you're having a mountaintop, and then you'll say, "Oh, well, that's the Holy Spirit." Like, that's just your emotions. Right?
No, it was a great key change and a changing of the lights.
Yeah.
That's what did it. But that's how you get people to come back to your church, is you provide the mountaintop experience that they get addicted to. So I have to come back next week, otherwise I don't feel close to God anymore.
Yeah, but even people. And there's a lot of people that do this, that they'll come back to church, and it's almost like, I don't want to be skeptical or pessimistic, but I hope like, hey, this time it's going to stick. They're with us. And then, because they're going through something in their life, and then it gets better, and then see ya.
Yeah, they disappear. Yeah. Very, very common.
Well, it's kind of
Happens.
like,
And it's an annual thing for some people. They'll,
Yeah.
oh, I'm here this,
you gotta have this big
month.
production for Christmas and Easter, because you have people that just come out for Christmas and Easter. I'm like, well, maybe they'll come back the next week. Well, church isn't the same because we did something completely different for those services.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, we don't do that either. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
What do
not here.
Yeah, what do we do for Easter and Christmas? We have church, just like we do the other 51 Sundays a year.
But on the other hand, never mind. That's another topic.
Yeah. But
I won't go there.
But I think we can have both sides of the reaction. So, I'm thinking of specific people right now in our church who are this way. They hit a rough patch in their marriage, or, things aren't going well at their job, or, again, it could be anything. And they show up at church for a while, and maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months. And it's like, oh, that's great. It's good to see you. Welcome back, blah, blah, blah. And then they feel better. And then they disappear, and it's going to be 3 months, 6 months, 12 months or even longer, before we see them again. And there's just this pattern where this happens all the time. I think we can affirm you're doing the right thing and showing up at the right place. Yeah, you have a need. This is where you go. Absolutely. The problem is you're on this roller coaster, this Ferris wheel, where you're just coming back to the same spot. That maybe you need to change tactics and do something different. Maybe you wouldn't land in that same place again because you're inevitably going to do it again. So maybe get on a different road, because this one
Well, I think that's
isn't working.
part of our pride issue. We have these mountaintop times in our life, and we feel like we're doing great, and our pride makes us want to think, oh, I'm doing great. I've got this going for me. I'm doing so great. And then, it all falls apart. I'm like, oh, I need help. I need God. Where's God at? I need God here.
Yep.
There's really two sides. So you guys have been talking about the church's responsibility as far as services, right?
Sure.
But on the end where, kind of what you were saying, Ian, people coming to church when they were going through a rough patch and then not showing up, there's an element missing in their faith, which is praise. And that worship, they come to church during rough patch because they need help. I think of, my children, when they needed something, they were as kind as could be to me. But, just day to day, I didn't get, hey, Dad, thanks for everything you do. There were those sprinkled throughout, but and we react much the same way with our Father, right? It's hard for us it's impossible for us to give God the praise that He's due.
Was that an analogy?
It wasn't.
It was a good one, though. Wow. That's the difference. When I do them, they're good.
Sean overcame his allergy.
No, I've never had one to me making them.
It's just other people.
Everyone else's falls
He just
short.
thinks ours are dumb.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yep. No problem.
Proceed.
Did you need clarity? Because have you met Sean before? This
I don't
doesn't
really
seem like a
talk in
surprise.
riddles.
I'm a little slow.
Okay.
Have you met me?
I have. I'm just trying to be helpful.
So John and I both turned to it because last night in our elders meeting, part of our Bible study was over 1 Peter verses 1 through 9 last night. So I'm just going to go ahead and read verses 3 through, how about 7? Okay. It said, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who according to His great mercy caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to obtain an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled and unfading, having been kept in heaven for you, who are protected by the power of God through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. In this you greatly rejoice, even though for a little while, if necessary, you have been grieved by various trials, so that the proof of your faith, being more precious than gold, which is perishable, even though tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ."
That's good stuff.
It is good
It's
stuff.
one of my favorite passages in all the Bible. Love that one.
Yeah. It's like we've got God doing all this stuff and sovereignly, causing our salvation and all this, but yet, for a little while, we will be grieved by various trials and stuff. But it's,
If necessary.
If necessary, it says, which was a fun discussion about that last night too.
Yeah, it was.
But it all results in praise and glory and honor at the revelation
It's
of Christ.
God, as you go through the valleys, we've said this before, if God's sovereign, he either caused it or allowed it. And so that's God saying, this is necessary. for you to be grieved by by various trials, so that the proof of your faith, being more precious than gold, which is perishable, even though tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor.
And so it tests, purifies faith, and praises the Lord. So what a gift that is. Again, nobody necessarily feels that way.
Yeah, it's easy to read that and go,
yeah.
"Oh yeah, man, God's so big," and then but then as soon as something happens, it's like, this is the worst.
Well, when you read James 1, consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds. Like, I've never been in a trial and thought, pure joy. This is pure joy. I'm loving every second of this.
Okay, but let me push
I'd love
back
to get
against
to that
that for a
point.
minute.
Yeah.
So I got diabetes, right? I got this tiny little piece of my pancreas, the tiniest little piece.
Do you pronounce it diabetes?
Diabetes.
I don't know. That's not the point. The point is there's this tiny
now.
little flaw in my body that, because of that, like without medications, I mean, I would die. And that's, you can look at that as like, that's terrible. But I look at that as like, look at how amazing God's creation is. That I mean, the design of us. And, I mean, you've got something going on similar, with your neck.
Sure.
I mean, everybody does, right? We all have ailments and stuff. Look at how incredible
Thorn in
God's
your side.
design is, huh?
A thorn in your side.
But it's maybe. I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess what I'm saying is you can praise God even in those valleys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did I bring that around at all? To
No, you did. I think that's great. There's
I thought that was great. I was just thinking of something.
there's
funny.
a book in here somewhere. I'd have to look called well, I don't know what that is on the screen. AirPlay passcode. That's fun.
It's our new sponsor.
It is. It's the Admin Mac. That's our new sponsor. Yeah, it's the return of the Mac.
Samsung probably wouldn't have faded out like that.
See, every opportunity you have
I know.
to make it. Of course, I do mine publicly.
Yes, you do.
But there's a book in here called Kiss the Wave. And it's a quote from Spurgeon that says, I will kiss the wave that slams me against the rock of ages.
Wow.
That I will embrace suffering because of what it's doing. It's pushing me closer to him, and therefore I welcome it. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm pursuing it. That would be weird. But as the trials come, we accept them for what they are and trust the Lord's going to do whatever He's going to do. It's necessary.
Yep.
That this is going to happen. So
That is a lot different than, and I don't mean to bring this back around, but I mean, a lot of churches aren't teaching that, to embrace these valleys, that it's necessary. I mean,
well,
there's a lot of prosperity out there.
they would say, sadly and very unbiblically, none of this is from God.
Yeah.
That it's your lack of faith, or you blame the world, which, the world, sin, all that. Yeah, absolutely. But that if there's something going wrong with you or in your life, it really is your fault, and that's not God's will. And what he really wants is for you to prosper in all ways, including you never get sick, you never have any need or want. That is literally anti-Bible.
Have they read Job?
Yeah, I mean, 1 Peter 1, we just read it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there, and it's just ignored and dismissed, and that's really unfortunate.
It is. It's very
because
sad.
People are unprepared to face this kind of stuff, and we don't face it well because of that. And we're very spoiled Americans who have really good lives and abundantly blessed in ways that we can't even fathom, really. So it's a rarity to have these overwhelming things that the vast majority of the world experience every single day.
Yep.
They're better equipped because this is normal. Mm-hmm. It's just not as normal for us, but we trust Him. So He's the God of the valley, just like He's the God of the mountain.
Yep.
And we're so grateful. All right, I think that's it for this installment of John chapter 6. We've got like 48 more for John chapter 6, because now what's coming is all the explanations from Jesus about what it means that He's just done with these two great miracles, and He's gonna confront the crowd and press into His identity even more, and
I can't
we'll
wait.
go from there. Yeah, it's going to be good stuff. So thank you for joining us. I hope it's been a blessing to you, and Go trust the God of the mountain, the God of the valley. He's gracious and kind. Guys, thanks for joining me. It's fun as always.
You're welcome.
Later.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good week.